Hey, Judy.
Lisa, how are you doing this holiday evening?
Oh, it is a holiday, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Happy Memorial Day.
It's Memorial Day.
Hmm.
We don't do anything special for Memorial Day, so it's not a biggie. And
True.
if I can't bite my fingernails, though, you can't pick your teeth.
Well, then I shouldn't have had corn on the cob for dinner. Can I tell you?
Hey,
Okay,
you
I
had like the
promise.
traditional,
I
what?
promise.
You had the traditional brats and beans and corn on the cob, huh?
I did, and some sauerkraut and onions. It was lovely. Yummy, yummy, lovely.
Hmm,
Yes.
wonderful. So it
So
was kind of cold today, cold and dreary around here.
I know.
And
I know. I think there are probably a lot of disappointed people celebrating Memorial Day because the crowds, like here on the beach, I'm in Door County right now. And the crowds here really aren't crowds at all. They're like
no.
no crowds. So anyway, I think a better thing on these rainy days to do is to pick up one of our favorite books. So
Yeah,
why
we've
don't you
been
tell us what book we're going to focus on tonight?
okay. So we have been highlighting at least one book a month since the
Yes.
beginning of the year here in 2024. And this month's book is Big
Big
Magic
Magic.
by
Okay.
Elizabeth Gilbert. Okay.
And that name should be
Creative
familiar.
Living Beyond Fear.
Uh-huh. I
So
like it.
this, I should have mirrored this because it's backwards, but I loved this book. It's the author is the same as the one who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. That's
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth Gilbert. And I
Mm-hmm.
read that book and I loved it also. So
Okay. You said she's got a really good writing style and very practical and all that type of thing, right?
yes, exactly. So I remember when I read it, I think it was published back in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. So
I
it's
think we
almost
shared
10
that.
years old, and I have my own copy. And I can remember the first time I read it, I can
Hmm.
remember just people people's names were like jumping into my brain who had to read this book. It was
Hmm.
just like, this person's got to read this, and this person's got to read this. This is so perfect and inspirational. I think, so many different people would enjoy it and get a lot out of it.
Well, that might be why it was a New York bestseller, right?
Exactly. I when I was looking at it, you know, it's beautifully written and it is woo-woo. I mean,
Hmm.
definitely if you're not into woo-woo, this isn't the book for you. Because
Hmm.
she starts out her book saying that she believes that there are plants and trees and animals and amoebas and all of the organisms that we are familiar with here on Earth. And she also thinks ideas are living things that exist in the
The spirit world.
this around us.
Hmm.
And ideas are constantly looking for somebody to bring them into the known. And
I really kind
they
of like that idea. It feels kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, and she has a couple of examples where that has really happened profoundly and explicitly to her, where some idea has come knocking at her door and she has let it in and started ruminating and started developing it. And then, for different reasons, has let that idea go. And somebody else, it has knocked on somebody else's door and they have brought it to fruition. And the two have talked about it and realized they both had the same idea, almost identical. And they didn't talk about it, and nobody stole it from somebody else. Nobody,
Hmm.
she said, there are ideas in the world, whether you're talking about gravity or cures or medicine or great architectural ideas that
Hmm.
happen in different places in the world at nearly the same time because that idea is looking for a host.
Looking for a
And
host. That's an interesting way to put it. Hmm.
mhm, mhm. And so that's the woo woo part of this book.
Okay.
And so
I
she
can live with
really,
that.
so she talks then about, okay, so with that in mind, how should we then live? And the first part of it is something we talked about last week, Judy, and that
Mhm.
is embracing our
The
curiosity.
creativity, right?
Yes, yes. And being open to serendipity in our lives and
Mhm.
being available to come what may.
Mhm. Mhm. Be open enough to be able to receive in that new idea.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
So, and that is when she writes this book, she writes it in a way that is the chapters are very short, and
Mhm.
each idea that she brings to illustrate a point is is a little story. She's a great storyteller.
Mhm.
And it's not, I mean, have you ever read an article where it's a great concept and they're like blah 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 blah, and then they illustrated the story, and then it's blah 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 blah, and it's like, I could care less about the blah blah at the beginning and the blah blah at the end. I just want to hear the story in the middle.
Just tell me the story. We love stories. That is the
Hmm.
best way to get your point across, right?
Hmm. Yes,
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
truly is. So she does a great job with that.
Okay.
And then she talks a lot about the concept of letting go of needless suffering. And
Now that's a mouthful. Letting go of needless suffering. And how does she define that?
well, in her life, she talks a lot about that starving, that angsty artist persona that we are familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, you know, you can choose to be artistic that way, but you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
She made a commitment when she was very young that she was going to become a writer.
Mm-hmm.
And it really didn't matter to her if she was a successful writer or if she was a recognized writer or if her writing paid the bills. Her goal in life was to write. And so she has organized her life in such a way that she could write. And
Mm-hmm.
she did not go to college to become a writer. She didn't get her MFA in creative writing.
Mm-hmm.
She went to a liberal arts school, and that was lovely. She also says, don't put yourself in debt. If you're going to college and you want to become a writer, go experience life. And that's going to help you become a writer.
Well, it's an interesting concept. Yeah,
Hmm.
forget
And
the
she gives
student
lots of
debt
different
and
examples.
be a student of life.
Yes, she definitely. And as you're becoming a student of life, if you want to be a writer, write about it as you're experiencing it. If you're an artist, do whatever your passion is, and you don't have to have these big huge chunks of time to you squeeze it in the little moments. You do it a half hour every day,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever that thing is.
Okay, that makes sense.
And
It really does. We all wait for that big block of time, and most of us just don't have it.
mm-mm,
Or
mm-mm.
we don't choose to devote it to that.
Yes. And so I thought, we've talked so much, Judy. The one thing that, not a criticism really, but a difference between who she is and who we are, is she is somebody who has always known that she is, not was, or is going to be a writer, but she has always been a writer. A writer is somebody who writes.
The
The
writer's
same
mind.
as
Mm-hmm.
a runner, you don't, have to win a race to be a runner. A runner is somebody who runs. So
Mm-hmm.
technically, I'm a runner, not a very fast runner, but I'm a runner. And it's like a dog owner. You're a dog owner if you have a dog.
You got
Very
it.
simple. And so, one of the things that we've talked about is so many of us really have a hard time even giving ourselves permission to devote ourselves to a playful attitude or a creative, expressive
Outlet.
endeavor,
Mm-hmm.
outlet for the sake of being creative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Whether it's playing the ukulele or learning calligraphy or learning a new language.
Right. I think that's very true. True statement.
So she said, instead of making yourself feel bad for not having the big experience, do a little bit all the time. Do a little bit every day. Commit to the little bits, and that
Mm-hmm.
creates then who you want to be and the skills and the interests that you want to develop and have.
Well, and that 15 minutes every day, if you add it up in a year's time, that's a hunk of time.
Well, and Judy, what I kept thinking of when I'm reading this is we as Sidetracked Sisters have been writing together for years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, we haven't, but we should sit down and look at some of our early writing
Mm-hmm.
and compare it to our current writing. I mean, we've talked about how Michelle has probably got the award for the most improved.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean,
She has just developed over time and become really focused on her writing.
yes, yes. When she starts reading, and she does it in like in a one-off, I find it so annoying. Because she can just really get it down in her first 10 minutes barely needs any editing. It's
I
just
know.
disgusting.
I'm very
And
jealous of her for that.
yes, absolutely. But the practice that we have committed to, I mean, as my husband said, hell and high water can occur before we don't have Sidetracked Sisters. And that's true. That is very true. So, with that being said, committing ongoing practice is creating a soft space for good things to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's, letting go of needless suffering, not beating yourself over the fact that you don't go on, um, you know,
I
yearly
look at our getting
retreats or,
I look at our getting together as a safe harbor. It's a safe
mm,
harbor where we can go and we can be who we are. We can create as we create. And as
mhm,
we
mhm.
read our short writings to each other, they're incredibly unique one over the other.
Yes,
So
yes.
there's no repetition. There's very little similarity in the story we tell. But I think
There's
that's
never
part of
any
our,
similarity. Yeah.
yeah, that's part of our magic. I think that if we have a big magic, I think that's our magic.
Mhm, mhm. I agree. Oh, and then there's the third part of this book. And like I said before, her chapters are beautifully short,
Mm-hmm.
wonderfully story told. Is that
Mm-hmm.
a verb? Story told? She
I
tells
think
with a
so.
wonderful storyteller's voice.
I like it. Yeah, it sounds very authoritative.
Okay. And the next thing she does is she really gives a lot of approaches and habits
Mm-hmm.
to what we need to live our most creative lives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she titles them with such expressive titles.
Mm-hmm.
She has In Praise of Crooked Houses, and that chapter is about not being a perfectionist. And she illustrates it with the house that she grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
And then she talks about how nobody's thinking of you and how everybody has their own drama.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're worrying about your writing and how it's going to affect others, wow.
Yeah, it's
Um,
kind of a useless emotion, isn't it? It's
it
it's
really
um
is.
yeah, I mean, it's going to affect some people well and some people not so well. So give it up.
And if they do talk about you, it's going to be pretty short and inconsequential, most likely.
Yes.
So don't worry about it. If
And
they
you
want
can
to talk about
always
you, they're going to talk about you and then they'll move on because you're just not all that.
Mm-hmm. The center of the universe does not revolve around you or I. So we need to let go of we must be perfect. I think that one is so huge in the life of people. I can't write because I'm not that good at it. I'm not great at grammar. I didn't do good in English. And some of the people that write are so effective, so interesting. And it doesn't matter. They have that inner talent and they put it down on paper and it's wonderful. So to wait for perfection is a waste of time.
Exactly. And Another chapter she has is called Fear in High Heels.
I love that.
And I just wanted to quote her on this one because I thought, isn't this just true? I mean, she talks about how fear, of course, can come wrapped in all different kinds of clothing. Oh, now I'm not gonna be able to find it. Okay, so what I remember from this chapter was she said, fear for women is very different than fear in men. She gave the comparison, and I don't know where she got these numbers from, but she said a man will look at a project, um, a work project, and he'll go, I'm 41% sure, or I can accomplish 41% of these tasks adequately. I'm going to apply for the job. I'm qualified. Hire
Mhm.
me. And she said, a woman will say, I am 99.8%, qualified. So wait until I get the other zero two
Oh,
percent,
ain't that
and then
the
I'll apply for the job.
truth?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Men have been taught to go for it. Women have to wait until they're perfect to go for it, right?
And yeah, and I mean, granted, there are other um, issues going on all the time,
Yes.
but we also hold ourselves back as women
Mm-hmm.
to to a sad degree because we do have that perfectionistic tendency. We want to have it all. And you, my dear Judy, are great at this. Just think about things like gardening. You want to know how to do all the things before
Mm-hmm.
you buy the plants or put them in the ground.
Put my
And it's like,
fingers in the dirt.
yes, just buy a plant and stick it in, give it some water and see what happens. And
It's
that's not
true.
your strong
I want
suit.
it to be as gorgeous as my sister Sandy's or my niece Lisa. I want it to be this perfection. And Michelle said it to me the other day. Michelle was never into gardening, and
Hmm.
she
Hmm.
started just simply putting things in pots. And she's got
Hmm.
some lovely arrangements of,
Hmm.
of different potted plants for the summer. And she never even wanted to garden. But she's, kind of like with her writing, she just evolves because she just takes it a step at a time and just goes forward with it. And I thought,
Yeah.
okay, if Lisa and Sandy and Michelle can all do it, I can do it, darn it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Now,
we'll
the
see.
other thing that Mother did laugh at you the other day, and I'll share with you why, and all of our listeners. She said that Judy, when you went to the greenhouse, you had to buy this plant for this pot, and you always plant this pot with this, and this, and then over here you plant this, that, and the other thing. And she said each pot has got particular plants that you've planted successfully in the past, and you
Hmm.
like the way it turned out, so it has to be planted the exact same way this year.
Hmm. She's right.
Oh,
But
Judy.
then she frustrated me because she said she buys all of her plants and gathers them all around her, and then she creates.
Yes,
And I have to say that her creations are beautiful.
they are.
But oh my goodness, she stresses because she doesn't really, with everything she's committed to, have time to plant all of these things. So, she's under spotlights at 1 o'clock in the morning planting her plants. And I mean, I ain't going there. That's just not what I'm made of. But,
Yeah.
I thought you were going to tell the story about how the first time she and I went plant shopping together, I came with all my gardening books to check out and make sure this perennial would work in this spot and this annual would go here. And she thought I was Looney Tunes. I
You
mean,
were,
it was.
that was pretty Looney Tunes. Totally
Mhm.
Looney Tunes, yes.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what?
But
I've lived away from home so much, I learned things from books. And so here we go. And some of the chapters you're talking about in this book sound enticing. I have not thoroughly read the book yet. So, see, books aren't all bad. They aren't all bad. Oh my gosh. Okay.
so
So,
this is a good one, and I've enjoyed revisiting the story. And yeah, she's just really inspirational. And like I said, the the book has the woo-woo component to it. So that is definitely something that, and she builds a well illustrated case for her woo-woo
Mm-hmm.
um,
Okay.
idea.
So
Okay.
don't
And
give
then
up if you think, oh, this is just woo-woo. Just keep going.
keep going, because she then really gets into fanning the flames of exploring and nurturing your creativity.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But now here's where you're supposed to give your question.
Lisa, in parting today, what would be the best suggestion you have to how to begin this creativity process?
I'm so glad you asked, Judy. That
Did I
wasn't
say it
planned
right?
ahead of
Did I
time
say
at
it right?
all. Not at all. Okay, so here is the problem. I am not Elizabeth Gilbert, and I
Mm-hmm.
never said that I wanted to be a writer when I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
I
Me either.
always said I wanted to be an artist when I grew up. But that quickly faded because I always assumed that you had to be able to draw people if you wanted to be an artist. And so I could never draw people. And so it was just not even something I imagined. And growing up in a little burg in Wisconsin, I had no, I mean, we did like pop art and stuff when we were like in sixth grade, and we did different kinds of media. And I was like, why are we doing this? It made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever why
Mm-hmm.
you would make just decorative items, because nobody I knew had metal wire sculptured bears in their house. I mean, it was just like,
Neither me. No, I think we're on the same plane with that one.
you know? And so being an artist was definitely not in the cards for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so all through my life, I have come to realize that I believe it was Elizabeth Gilbert, she was in a talk one time. I think it was a Super Soul Sunday event with Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
And she did a talk. Like I said, don't hold me on this that it was Elizabeth Gilbert, but I think it was. She did a talk where she said that she was talking to people about finding their passion, finding their
Mm-hmm.
passion, finding their passion. And this woman came up to her afterward and told her how disappointed she was in the conversation and in the speech, because she said, I don't have it. I've looked, I've struggled, I've searched, and I don't have a single passion.
Mm-hmm.
And she then came up with the idea of there are some people who are sledgehammers, like
Mm-hmm.
her, who know what they want to do with their life and in their life. And there are
Mm-hmm.
other people who are hummingbirds. And
Mm-hmm.
that's you and me, Judy. We are definitely hummingbirds, people who have a variety of interests.
I
And
call myself a classic generalist.
yes, exactly. And so I don't think the idea of this book with pursuing creativity is necessary on the fact that you have one creative interest. I think it's okay if maybe this month you decide every day this month I'm going to practice my calligraphy. And you do that until you're not into that anymore. And then you do something else.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And with that being said, I do have an answer for those people who don't know what they want to do or play or be when they grow up.
I'm
And
listening.
and that is the 100 wants list.
Okay.
And let me explain what that is.
Okay.
One of the things that I think we often don't do is we don't allow ourselves to just really sit down and without fear and without
Judgment.
judgment, perfect word, let ourselves just put something down on paper to get the pump primed.
Mm-hmm.
And so the 100 wants, or 100 wishes as it's sometimes called, is writing down 100 things that you have wanted in the past, you currently want, or that you think someday you may want.
Oh, I like that.
And the 100 wants list needs to include not only wants that you are totally out there, that you can't even believe you're putting down on paper, but it can also be very practical things like, I want to learn calligraphy. And it can be wants that you have wanted in the past that you've achieved. I want to get my master's degree in English. I want to have a beautiful son. You know, things that,
And I think we need to be careful. These aren't like a bucket list. These aren't
no,
one and done. Like
right.
I've always wanted to jump out of an airplane, and I'm finally going to do that in August. That wouldn't be, I'm sure I'm not going to take up skydiving as a profession, but
Right.
the
But you could
reality
put
of
on
it,
your want list that you want to do. It could include some bucket list ideas. I don't have a problem with adding that.
okay, well, that's
Yeah, I mean,
interesting.
we got
But
100. 100, I think, is a pretty good number, don't you?
yeah, I do. I
I
mean,
think
it's
there's room for
enough to
bucket list
stretch, it
ideas.
stretches you a bit, right?
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
think 100 is a big enough number. It's small enough that you can write down 100 things, but it's also big enough that it's going to stretch you beyond the practical.
Mm-hmm. Well, and those 100 things, I can imagine, it's kind of like a compost pile. Now, how's that
Ooh.
for an analogy? Where you put all these things in the container of your 100 wants list, and they begin to vegetate and break down. And you
Mm-hmm.
might even start to realize that these 5 ideas have similarities in their process. And so you
Mm-hmm.
start
Mm-hmm.
with one, and then you bring in the next, and you bring. I think it's a good number because it's enough that you're getting out of your comfort zone a little bit or a lot. At the same time, you have enough material or enough content to open you up to possibilities.
Yeah. Yeah. And to kind of put it in perspective, I
Hmm.
was just thinking of what could I put on this list that I haven't really explored in the past or put on a list before. And I thought, I have a brand new idea. I
What's that?
thought, okay, so we were up at the cottage where you are right now over the
Yes.
last couple of days.
Yes.
And as I was walking past the rental, which is next door, there is a big expanse of green space in front of the cottage. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a big expanse of green space to the side of the cottage.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the back is Lake Michigan. And on
Mm-hmm.
the last side is our cabin or our cottage where we stay. So there's two sides to this cabin that are spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay, one is often a parking lot, to be honest with you. Lots of people will bring a camper and friends, and it turns into a parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
But the other one, it's like, what could I do? What should we do with that space? Should we plant trees? And it's like, well, we just pulled out 5 trees today because they were planted last fall and they're 98% croaked. Yeah.
Dead.
And I
Right.
thought, you know what I want? I want to make a labyrinth.
Ooh, I love that idea.
We have the room to
Yeah.
make a average size labyrinth.
Labyrinth. That could be incredibly interesting. And it goes along the lines of our love of meditation and
Yeah.
spiritual journal writing and all of those
Yes.
kinds of things, mindfulness.
Mhm.
I think that would be awesomely fun.
And I thought, on a list of 100 things to do, building a labyrinth, is that going to be on everybody's list? No. But if I put it on the list, then it starts percolating. And I have
Hmm.
to, if that's something that I really do want, guess what? I need to set aside some time to research labyrinths. And what kind of labyrinth do I want? I don't want it to be high maintenance, something that I need to be out there and weed. That's why I don't want a garden up there because I'm
Hmm.
not going to be available to weed it.
Hmm.
So it probably needs to be rocks and stones, but then do we put landscape fabric down?
Hmm.
Or do I put like fertilizer down and turn it into a labyrinth that's made with fertilizer? So you're talking about a labyrinth that needs to be mowed instead
Mhm.
of, it's
There's
just
a lot of
reading fast
choices.
and
And if you put
yeah.
in those, low maintenance, all that kind of thing, it needs to be kind of a stairoscape of a labyrinth so that it doesn't have to be fussed over, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, so that's something I thought, that's what I need to do is have the 100 wants. Not that that can't be more as things come up, because if I had already written my 100 wants, then I would say, oh, I can't put this on because I've already got my 100 list. But no, I could add it to the list. And when you add something, or when you pick something that you want to focus on, now, okay, let me put some parameters on this. I would like to build it this summer. I want it to be inexpensive. I want it, all the things. What are the criteria I want? How? So I need to research. I need to do
Mhm.
some research, and I need to. We
And
got the
that would be
space.
just
Wouldn't
up
that be
your alley.
fun?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Very fun. I love it. It's a wonderful idea.
And then I was like, ooh, wouldn't it be cool to see, are there other labyrinths in Door County? I mean, wouldn't it
Hmm.
be cool? There's an art walk.
Hmm.
Wouldn't it be fun to have a labyrinth, explore the labyrinths of Wisconsin? Or I mean, it's just like, ooh,
It
this
could
could be the
lead to
beginning of
all,
something very interesting.
it could lead to all kinds of fun. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Well,
So
Lisa, this is one of those topics where we could go on, but I don't want to bore our people to death. So I really value your input on this book, and I plan to either steal it off your bookshelf for a week or two to read it or get a copy of my own. So thank you,
it's one I
Elizabeth.
can definitely share with you, because it's something, I mean, literally, I was able to reread most of it in a weekend. And it's just a very easy read, but it's something that you sit there and go, oh, that just feels so good to read that. She's a great storyteller. And by being a great storyteller with such great specific vignettes, she just really hits at the heart of the concepts to really encourage you in your creativity. And I definitely recommend Big Magic. It's not a new book, but it's definitely something that
It stands
is
the test of
inspirational.
time. Yeah,
It
I think it
does.
would tickle my mind, and I love books that do that. So
Mhm.
thank you for
Way
bringing it
to
to my
go, Elizabeth
attention.
Gilbert. Good job.
Good job. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. This was fun,
Okay.
Lisa. I
We'll
am
talk to you later. We'll get on with getting on, right?
absolutely. That's what we do
Okay.
best. Getting on with getting on. Okay, we'll
Okay,
see
talk to you later.
you next time. Bye,
Okay, love
honey.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Love you too.